Hello there.
Hello there. Welcome in. How you doing, man?
Yeah. Thanks for having me, man. I'm happy to be here. It's
Thank
been
you for joining.
a little while in the making. We've had a delay a couple of times, but
Yes.
it's
Yes,
good
but
to be
that's
here.
fine. Mm, More time to think about all the stuff from SitCon and what happened.
Hmm.
By the way, I apologize for the background video. It somehow got resized when I exported it earlier, and I didn't catch it until I added it to OBS. So deal with it. It's driving me
Deal with it,
crazy.
chat.
Deal
But
with it.
they're used to that stuff.
Exactly. It's Star Citizen. There's only features.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, today the idea is let's talk about SitCon. So, what are your initial thoughts? Like when you first saw it, well, how did you feel about it?
Initial thoughts were, let's talk a lot about ships and planets and show you flybys. But then I think towards the end is what I really got excited about when it came to the next system showing up. And the content around that and the amount of teamwork it's going to take and different roles that people are going to have to play, as well as the instancing, which really piqued my interest because I feel like that will be another evolution for Star Citizen itself. Just because of the issues that we constantly run into with how things are set up right now and doing these missions. Excited about it. A lot of the information at the end is what really piqued my interest with the again the instancing and how that's going to work with doing missions. I know they want to seamlessly pull you into an instance and out of an instance and back into the persistent universe. So we'll see how that works out. But I think it is going to be a big step for actually getting missions that work and are complete.
So,
Um,
that's your what stands out the most to you is your favorite part, or was that is that your favorite thing you saw, or is that just what
it's
stands out the most?
it's that's what stands out the most. I think, like I said, that'll be another evolution for the game itself. But I think my favorite part of it was the trench run and the huge team-based or org-based activity that's going to be coming to Nyx. And I think that's going to be real exciting and fun to do. Of course, as a content creator, it's going to be, there's going to be a lot that we can create around that and have fun with, and so that's what I'm most looking forward to and exploring the new system.
So, do you think that was the strongest moment in SitCon? What do you think would be the strongest moment that came out of this SitCon?
Yeah, I would agree that that would be the strongest moment. Just the scaling up of the missions and the content that they're bringing to the table.
Gotcha. So,
Um, and yeah, it mixed that with the new Genesis system for creating planets and environments. I really think that is another one of those points. I'm trying to think of how I would like number those, on a scale of 1 to 10, like, you know, uh, what where on the scale that would be. Um, I think Genesis is going to allow them to create a lot more interesting environments and planets for us. That just kind of goes with the visual aspect of the game. But when it comes to the actual content and making it feel like a lived-in universe, I think that mission, that new size mission, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but that new mission is going to be key to really drawing players in and groups of
the
people together.
the Death Star run.
Yeah, yeah. They call it the trench run, but that's part of that mission, right?
Yeah.
So there's several aspects of having to fight and having to like bomb certain places of the station to get to the next step. So I think that's going to be a really fun activity.
I think so too. I'm actually looking forward to that probably more than most other parts.
Hmm.
I think you're right. Genesis and the potential for better storytelling in instanced content was a huge plus because I think I've kind of noticed it the most in the last couple months. I really loved all the ASD stuff they've released. I think it's been absolutely what this game needs. The issue I see with it now is if it takes them that long just to release, what is it now, 7 missions? 7 contracts. It's the initial. Is it the initial? No, 7. So we're at 9. 9 contracts just for the
Mhm.
ASD stuff. It's taken them quite a while just to get all that working. Now, I agree that it may help them pick up the pace when it comes to getting this content out, but I think we need a lot more of it before this starts to become a more balanced game, full game, content full game, and not just relying on the sandbox aspect, which it kind of had for quite a while. So seeing this come in has been really nice.
Yeah, to actually have a story and a narrative tied to these has been really awesome. And the interaction within these facilities has been cool. You know, having to use what 3 different tools on the multi-tool itself, and then having the puzzles that they have implemented in. I think the ASD facility for me has been the most fun first-person shooter mission in the game. Um, and I'm looking forward to that. I think you're right on the the part that there's got to be a lot more that they're going to have to add to the game mission wise in order to keep people engaged in the
Yeah,
platform.
and the fear is always. I mean, we can look at Dune right now as the example. People 3-4 months in have gone through all the content,
Yeah.
and it's an MMO, and so they're kind of scratching their heads, going, "So, what do we do now?" It's like,
Yeah.
it's like,
But it, like, one thing I've said to my friends is the game feels, the universe feels empty, right? It doesn't
mhm.
feel like it's lived in. We're grabbing missions from a Moby-Glass. We're not going up to an NPC and getting these missions from them. I'm not saying there has to be some sort of, um, you know, clip sequence we have to go into for each mission or anything like that, but it would be nice to have a place to go to, like have to travel to see a certain NPC to get a certain type of mission. And maybe that NPC is part of whatever program, like where you would go for like the security force in what the heck game is that? What was the one that came out? It's like Skyrim, or by the makers of
Starfield,
Skyrim, Starfield. Like you
loading
actually had
screen
to go up to an
simulator.
NPC. Yeah, yeah. Um, you had to go up to an NPC to get a mission. There was some dialogue there and stuff, and I would like to see that um, within Star Citizen. I guess that used to be a thing, but they kind of pulled back on that. So I don't know if they're creating things and then putting them on the shelf for later implementation, and they're just got these easy ways of implementing these new missions for us without having to do all the dialogue that goes along with it. But like now we're getting the people that are popping up on our MFDs and giving us some sort of dialogue. But why can't we go visit that person? I think that would be really neat.
I think, well, there used to be Eckhart, Tessa, that you could go
Mhm.
see in the past, and that would be, your mission giver. They wouldn't always work. I think that tech is probably better now when they decide to re-implement that. Hopefully, at least that's the hope. You always want to be going
Yeah.
forward, right? But I
Hmm.
think there needs to be a bit of a balance, right? There's a lot of space to get through in this game. Like there's a lot of distance between things. So you don't want to necessarily force people to go see a mission giver for everything, but I think at least an initial hello, go for the first time you get a contract from them, you go to their offices, you say, "What's up, Foxhole, whatever. This dude you guys
Yeah.
wanted to hire. Like, I'm a real person. I'm not a bot. Give me the job."
Hmm.
And from then on, you can take it from the Moby-Glass, after you do the initial intro contract. I think that would be a cool way to kind of make it so it's like, oh, these people actually exist. They're not just, you know, these torsos that float in space and talk to you through an MFD. They
Yeah.
actually are real people or real NPCs. And
Hmm.
I think that would be a good balance. I do think there needs to be a bit more in person uh, gives, but then, and
Yeah.
Stavo made the point, and I was going to bring this up. They are making it so that Wicklow, you have to go to a Wicklow Emporium in order to take the Wicklow contract. I think when it comes to that crafting stuff, that might be a bit excessive. For every time you want to do a Wicklow contract or hand something in, you got to go there, grab the contract,
Hmm.
remember what the pieces you needed were, fly back to your hangar,
Yeah.
potentially grab them, bring them back. That I think it's going to get a little tedious.
Yeah.
Um,
considering the amount of time it takes to grab the materials for that, it's not like you're
Yes.
going to stay on that long. So, if that is the case, then you're going to lose the mission and you have to go back and grab it again. Which you're going there once you get the stuff, anyways. And just, the community itself is going to compile that information and make it available for us somewhere on the internet. So,
Yeah.
you're going to have a web page open.
That, yeah,
Or you're
exactly.
gonna have
Don't
to
give
go there and
us.
write it
Yeah,
down.
I mean,
Right?
it's great
Yeah.
for people creating websites and creating stuff around the game, like Urkel
Mhm.
or UEX. I love those
Yeah.
websites and the guys that put the work into making them. They did a great job, and it's a really really helpful tool, especially in a game that does not hold your hand, does not have the ability to hold your hand really right now. Um, is That's clearly not their priority, and I can understand that. That's something that typically comes closer to a 1.0 release when you have like your true tutorial, when you have, you know, but what they told us a year or two ago about the story driven Star Citizen experience, where you'll probably go through a bit of a story the first few hours and then you'll be dumped into the verse. So before all that comes in, but I
Yeah,
I
and that
agree
seems
that
to be it
more
so far.
interaction, more interaction, more of a reason to get off my ship and go into Area 18 or go into Lorville. Those are
Mhm.
all positive things. Especially 18. I think there's a ton of potential because the whole damn planet is a city. So,
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of opportunity there to have certain characters, good, evil, whatever, um, to go into and kind of choose your path. That would be kind of cool. I do agree with you, kind of going back a little bit, talking about like the introduction to a new character and getting like your first mission from them. I think that is a really good way of like, certain people that you meet and start getting missions for will lead you into like a branch of other NPCs that you'll have to go and get your first mission from. I think would be a pretty cool implementation. And that would actually kind of start forcing you to have to go out, like you said, outside of your ship and explore different areas, go into a city or, into a station and find this person. I think it would be pretty cool.
yeah, I think we have the mini map now. You can give us a little marker and we can follow that to get to them. Which I don't think is something I ever really use, but it's there. I know it's there. I'm always surprised when I hit
Uh,
F2 and it's like, oh, is this my ship? Oh, that's right. it's like, it's
right?
got so used to
Yeah,
playing the game
the
without it. You don't
Yeah, the
really.
minimap really. So there's two aspects to the minimap. Like first person minimap, I don't ever really use. I might peer up at it just to get a direction on where my friends are to me because they got the little people on there.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I really don't use it for anything because they have the floating markers when you look around when they work. And then the actual like star map, when you pull that up, you're in your ship and you're trying to travel somewhere. I think needs a little bit of work.
Oh yes.
Navigating is a bit difficult, but also when you're on a planet's surface or like a moon surface and you're trying to zoom in, there's either right on top of your ship or you're in
A mile
satellite
away.
orbit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
miles away.
So please give us some more granularity there to be able to scope out the surface of that moon or planet to select the destination that we want to go to. And I think it would be cool. I don't know how hard it would be to implement, but to be able to put a marker on that planet and then quantum or fly to it.
That is
I don't
one of
know
the
if you.
things that they've talked about in the past and we haven't seen, and we'll get to that. But so,
Mhm.
what do you think was the weakest moment of this sitcom?
Oh, weakest moment. I don't really think in terms of that. I'm blanking. If there's something you can add to this so I can jog my memory a little bit.
So, I mean, we started off, we saw, Planet Tech Genesis, which I think we both agree was pretty incredible. If they can actually pull it
Mhm.
off, I think that's, something that a lot of people will be excited about. Granted that there's things to do in that area, and rather instead of just walk around or fly around it. Uh, the What did we see after that? We saw Nyx, and we know with Nyx we're getting Levski and the Glacium belt. We saw
Mhm.
all their work on the first planet, but that's not going to be coming in with the first release here in 3 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Then after that, we saw crafting. We talked about crafting. We talked about instancing. They showed us the ships, the new weapons. And then we talked about the new content coming in with the trench run. And we saw the new Vanduul ships and the Vanduul raids coming into Nyx, and that will be fighting the
Yeah, that's
Stinger, the Glaive, and the Blade.
that, definitely that's something I'm excited about. But the Bird's talking about some guy teased him about pizza
Yes,
because
I was like, what?
Bird
Who's
Bird
teasing you about
Bird and
pizza?
I have been tagging the CIG Twitter and posting pictures of us sitting all lonely at the pizza parlor, unable to eat pizza and asking for pizza. So we're hoping that they were hinting at some getting some pizza in the game finally. The I don't know, like the ships I kind of already knew about, wasn't really excited for. Like I really like the Paladin. I think that's a good ship. Um, didn't know about the Shiv, which has been actually a fun ship to fly around. I think is like the perfect little ship for Pyro. Just kind of fits into that whole aesthetic. And I think there's going to be more cool hodgepodges that come from Gray's Market, which is really interesting. But
So I discovered in my research for the last video I edited and some of the background footage in this, you will actually see it at one point. They showed the Shiv 1 or 2 years ago.
yeah, I did see that. They did show it, I guess, in a like a trailer or something, right?
It was in the 1.0 discussion and Squadron 42 discussion about AI.
Aha. Yeah, I remember seeing somebody posted a picture of it up on Reddit, and it shows like an F7 sitting in front of it, some kind of thing going on there, but
Three
I
people
don't know
pop
exactly.
out the back and fly over, or EVA
Yeah.
over.
Hmm.
So it was, and I had completely spaced on it until I saw that video again, and I completely forgotten it. They had already teased it. But
Hmm.
that was a Squadron 42 asset.
Oh, okay, that's pretty cool. I don't know. I think it's a pretty interesting ship. It provides a lot in a small package. We'll say it's got a decent amount of storage. It's got some firepower. It moves pretty quick. It's pretty nimble. And I just enjoy it. I think it's got a really cool, like I said, aesthetic to it that fits the whole pyro, like thrown together, a non-maintained sort of aspect of things. But I guess a low point for me would be the what's the new ship that came out for the new alien ship that came out?
Stinger.
I'm thinking Stinger. I keep thinking Blade. The Stinger. I think it's a really cool ship for a heavy ship or a heavy fighter. I don't like that there's no real interior. There's just the backbone that you follow for it. I wish there was a little bit more to it. It keeps it. I mean, it's real simple, but I feel like there should be a little bit more interior space to utilize in there for somebody.
Yeah, especially
So
since
spending.
it's, humanized and no longer truly a, the one we can fly at least is
Mhm.
Asperia, a human manufacturer, taking these alien ships and making them flyable by humans. You know, they might have been
Yeah.
able to do a little bit more. That's why I think people like the Sulin, even though I'm not a huge fan of the Sulin, is because
Mhm.
you can actually live in it. There's things you can do other than just get in the
Yeah.
cockpit. Um, so what did you? Um, so okay,
The
so for
the
you,
sh-
your weakest moment would
the
be the ship and the ship stuff because
just kind of the ship announcements. I mean, I don't know. To me, that's something that we all kind of expected. We didn't really expect to hear about a new system coming out soon. And as far as I'm aware, the new system is going to be limited on what's available, right? I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of planets to go to yet, because they're still working on Genesis and then, putting all the POIs and stuff in. So, from what I hear, it's going to be the station that's there, and then the glacial belt
yep.
that we can go do missions in. So, I'm excited for it, but I hope the other aspects come sooner rather than later.
Yeah. I think they'll have to, or people will just be like, what are we doing here?" Bro, did you think this type of sitcom was better than the previous? in person over 2 day sitcoms? Like, do you feel like this more concise, heavily curated, pre-recorded was better, or do you?
Uh, I'm a bit biased in this because I've only been really backing. I've backed the game since October 2023, and I've been playing since November 2024. So I've only really put about a year into this game
Mm-hmm.
in seat time. So I haven't really paid attention to it until that time period. So I'm rather green when it comes to this game. Um, so I haven't really paid attention to any other sitcoms prior. I did like this experience because I could sit down with my friends. I did a watch party with Devil's Night Gaming, who you've had on here, and the Darth Wookie,
Nice.
another friend of ours, and another streamer here on Twitch. And we all sat down, we watched it together, we all reacted together, had a great time, and I really liked that experience. So I hope they continue doing it like this, and I feel like I felt like it was well curated. They did a good job um, with the live stream for everybody to follow. The only the only previous sitcom footage I think that I have seen was Jared's interview with Dad Bod Nerd, the humble salvage guy. Yeah. So other than that, I really haven't seen anything, to be honest.
But sorry, because they missed my question. So you didn't go
Mm.
back and watch anything. You just watched the Dad Bod interview, which I
No,
miss Dad
yeah,
Bod.
correct. That is correct. So I haven't seen any other previous sitcoms. That's my only knowledge of it is having seen that clip because he's a friend of a friend up here in Washington.
Got you. Okay, well, I've got some more questions. This one we kind of already started talking about, but yeah, do you agree that Nyx should come in Bear, or do you think they should have waited for at least the first planet, the Belt, and Levski, and maybe some other POIs to be in there? Or do you think it's better to have something now that gets put together in front of us? I mean, like everything else, or do you think they should have waited to have a bit more, like at least all the planets and the moons, like they did with Pyro?
Well, so there's a couple parts of me to this. Like, there's the greedy part that wishes, yeah, we were getting a full system, somewhat like Pyro, um, but we also have to keep in our minds that this is still considered an alpha, right? This is still a work in progress. So them even bringing this to us is quite nice because it just means there's new systems that they need to test, and we're all backing the game. We all believe in it somehow, some way. Um, I believe in it because of its innovation, and part of the innovation, part of innovation comes stuff like this. So I'm excited about it, and I feel that it's something that's needed to continue to push this game forward. So hopefully it releases well. We don't run into a whole lot of problems. We've seen them improve things over the last year. Um, I know from when I first started playing to now, things have been a lot more stable. There is a pattern of things that I'm seeing when like new missions come out, which I messaged you about before the podcast. Um, that a new mission comes out and the old missions are broken. So I'm
Yeah.
wondering if the instancing will fix that sort of thing.
Well, theoretically, it
Um,
should, right? Because it's
yeah,
its own thing. There may be problems
yeah, it's
connecting to it, but I think once you're in, it should. Once they get it working, theoretically,
yeah, it
theoretically.
should be able to start at square one. It shouldn't hopefully get caught up somewhere in the process. Like if you come in behind somebody and they've already done something, and there's all those factors that add into something that's live and online. So hopefully those things make those missions go smoother. But I am for them doing this. It does again give us new content to explore, a new place to explore, and ways of finding bugs for them to fix, and you know uh, sharpen things up for when this game does eventually drop to the masses and not just the tight knit community that surrounds it.
True. Now you mentioned Innovation. I don't really see any innovation with what's coming into Nyx so far. I think the
Hmm.
innovation will be there when the Planet Tech drops and we see Nyx 1 finally
Yeah.
in. That'll be the true innovation. Until then, it's I don't think it's anything really too new. It's, we've already seen it's a bit of recycled assets from Pyro in terms of the space stations. Levski,
Hmm.
I will say, to go against what I just said, is the only thing that's probably heavily was already its own thing when it existed in the verse a few years ago, and now I'm sure they've just developed that and added to that, and it will probably feel more like a very unique location, which is a very good thing. Even though some of
Hmm.
the halves will look similar and stuff like that, I think the location itself will be very refreshing, and in terms of like it feeling a little different than everything else, and also really cool. The idea of going
Yeah.
through this huge bored hole into the station is awesome. Um,
Hmm.
the I wish that at least the first planet was in it when it released. Personally, I
Yeah.
think when I first saw it, I was like, "Oh, we're gonna get Levski, the belt, and the planet," and then I had to go back and look and be like, "Oh no, we're not. We're not getting the planet."
Yes. Just Levski in the belt. Oh
Yep, just
no.
Levski and the belt.
Yeah, it would be really cool if they gave us at least one planet with the Genesis tech in it, so we could explore that and see how that's like. And then when base building or crafting really become a thing, I think that's going to add a whole lot more to this game in terms of the economy and the interaction. Right? It's going to
Yeah,
give us more reasons to go out and salvage or mine and find materials. So that's going to be a huge addition to the game because a lot of it revolves around that, and we don't have that yet. Um,
no, and that's actually one of the next things I want to talk about is crafting.
mhm.
Um, what do you think of this first iteration of crafting we're gonna get with the mobile crafter?
I thought the mobile crafter was a bit odd, but we'll have to see how it works out. I mean, I'm used to a crafting machine in video games being in like a specific spot. I mean, I guess Minecraft, you got the crafting table you can take around with you, but usually you settle down in an area. So, my take on it is I'm excited about it either way. Getting crafting in the game is something we've needed for a long time. So it's going to be interesting to see what players do with it and see what ways good or bad it is used. So um yeah, I don't know. I'm just excited for it. And I haven't thought truly in depth about it. It is something that's just kind of passed my mind because I've been focused on the Nick system and the big mission that's eventually coming. Um yeah, that's all I really have on that one.
I think
Uh,
the fact that it's mobile is actually kind of great, and it'll be great for
mhm,
orgs and groups because being able to bring the materials with you. Let's say you've got your fleet, right? You've got,
mm,
let's say it's a large fleet. You've got an Idris, a Polaris or two, maybe a Hammerhead or two, a Carrack, a Connie, some fighters, and a C2 now loaded with resources and supplies and a mobile crafter, so that
yeah.
if you need to craft ammo, if you need to craft med gel, if you need to craft any of these things on the go and dispatch them out to other ships, you can. And that's actually pretty cool to be able to. It's actually really, without saying it, the first steps in kind of logistics and being able to, resupply on the go without having to stop at a station or something. And I think that that'll be pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, no,
Um,
that'll be a big time saver when it comes to having to go back to a station or a planet to get supplies. So I think that'll be nice. I agree with you on that. That's gonna be fun.
um, Sorry, real quick. I just see Scott's comment. So yeah, that'll be a crafting machine available to everybody to go buy from any store, or most stores at a space station or in a city. So that's not just for org peeps. That'll be for all peeps.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that'll be pretty cool. And I think having something like that finally in game will be great. I just hope it's not too clunky. I hope it's not too time consuming when you get into the little pieces of inventory, because we're all such fans of our inventory system right now.
Yeah.
We did see little moments in SitCon where they showed the new UI that's coming in, and I think it is better, but I think it won't take much for it to feel better than what we have. And more importantly, I think they need to work on making sure the systems work. So when you move something from one inventory slot to another, or from one
Mhm.
backpack to another, or you pick something up, or you put something in your hands, it doesn't get broken like it does sometimes, where now that item no longer appears. You don't know if you dropped it on the floor, if it's hiding in your backpack and it's just invisible right now. I think that's the more important thing to iron out before we get too much into the UI look. I think that's secondary. And I think when we're all
Mhm.
complaining about how that UI looks because it works perfectly, those will be great days. And we'll, if
Right.
that's all we're complaining about, we're really in good shape.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Uh,
so
yeah, the UI is something I wanted to touch on. Just not just the UI, but the back end, because you mentioned the UI and they showed a brief thing of it, which I think we've all seen at some point. As I think there was a Spectrum post about it, and they had said that part of that is kind of reworking the back end for that, so things go to where you want them to go. So that is something I would like. I'm hoping to see real soon, just because of all the inventory issues that I've run into, my friends have run into, and just while doing a mission, the issues you run into. Somebody picks up a chess piece, and all of a sudden they're wearing it, and then their chess piece is gone with their backpack and all their belongings, and we're trying to figure out, okay, where is it? Is it on the ground? Is it in a box? Like it's will it just show up on you when we get to hangar? What's gonna go down? Did you lose something like a prized possession? Like Bert in chat had a really cool backpack that he ended up losing due to
that's
one of
always
those
very
little inventory
frustrating.
bugs. Yeah.
That's always
So
very frustrating. Yeah. I mean, I love how Chad is going off on how basically Medgel is Soylent Green. It's people. It's people.
it's people, Joe.
It's people, Joe. I mean, that would
Yeah.
actually be, kind of funny, kind of be like a homage to Warhammer 40K, where one of the ways they make the next Space Marines is by going in and stealing the DNA and bone marrow, whatever, from the previous one that just died.
Right.
So, I mean, why not? Let's
Oh
do it.
man.
I'm down. I mean, we have
What a
Henry Cavill
terrific
here.
universe.
Yeah, exactly.
Warhammer. Oh man.
That is a crazy universe. I'm actually really excited for the whatever. I'm hoping whatever Amazon does with it is not terrible. Um,
Yeah, well, I mean, they got Henry Cavill, and he's
yeah,
apparently
but
a,
Henry
you know,
Cavill is only Henry Cavill. He's
yeah,
just
this
an
is true.
actor. And
This
look
is
what
true.
happened to The Witcher. Okay, quick. Let's
Hmm.
have fun. Who here is excited for Witcher season 4, or even knows that it's coming out?
I didn't know that.
That's exactly the
I
reaction I
I
expected.
I watched the first couple of episodes with Henry, and I haven't really got past it, but
First
I
season
don't know.
was pretty good. Second season was okay. Third season was meh. And well, no more Cavill. So
Hmm.
poor Liam. But anyways, all right. Tangent wrapped up. All right. I was gonna ask you quickly. We kind of touched on this already briefly, but well, I guess this question doesn't hit with you the same way since you're a more recent citizen.
Hmm.
But did you appreciate the lack of concept ships sales during this sitcon, which is something that we typically will see?
So I know this has been something that's come up in the past, right? People paying a lot of money for JPEGs, we'll say. I can appreciate that. To give us something that's actually tangible that we can fly in the game and show us, and provide that versus something that's, oh, this is just a concept. Because I myself have fallen in love with the Misk Odyssey, and that's basically just a concept ship. I mean, there is an actual model for it. We saw them working on it, but that's a exploration ship, and exploration stuff is taken a back burner because, of course, they have to build the universe for that, and that's probably going to be something that's one of the last things implemented into the game before 1.0, or around 1.0. But yeah, like I'm happy they didn't show us something that we can't play with, if that makes sense. You know?
hmm I think one of the biggest positives I have to give to CIG overall in the last year is that. Because that, it may seem small, but I think it's a big thing for
Mhm.
us backers to be not constantly baited by JPEGs,
Yeah,
essentially. And I
seriously.
think that's something that we haven't really given CIG credit for this year. So I would just like to say, CIG, thank you. That doesn't mean it's
Def-
great, but that was a good thing. That positive thumbs up there. Appreciate it.
Definitely, definitely. And think of all the cool things we've gotten recently, well, like say within the last year, that haven't been a super expensive ship in terms of things, right? They've all been,
I
I
mean, they've
want to
been
say, like,
pretty pricey. When you look at the Wolf is what, $110? The Shiv is like
uh,
150 instead of $110 Cuddy Black, and this is like
yeah,
a piece together. The the
well,
Paladin, I really want a Paladin, but
I,
325, $350, that's, or 325, right? That's,
well, yeah, for the Paladin, yes, but I
the
was thinking
Stinger is
along the
what, like
lines of
200
the
something?
Wolf. I was thinking the lines like the Wolf, the Shiv, 100, 150 and lower. So maybe I just got to adjust my scale.
I
Um,
think maybe you're right, and I just haven't adjusted for inflation. Because if you look at a Gladius, that's $90, and you look at the Wolf, it's like, well, that was just $90 3 years ago. It's 110 now. So,
yes. I mean, the Wolf is a really cool ship. I mean, not just the styling of it, its performance, its sounds. The theatrics around the ship are really really cool. And I think that thing was bargain for what we got. Price wise, probably not a bargain just because it's a light fighter. But I don't know. I thought it was really cinematic. I kind of regret giving the one that I bought away. I'll have to buy another one. Um, but I really like that ship. And then there's we got the Atlas, which I thought was pretty cool, which has kind of turned out not to be really useful, unfortunately, especially with the
they
recent
have to
changes.
fix the tractor beam. They
Yeah.
have to fix the tractor beam and the way you move around. Like if you have head tracking, it's tolerable, but even then your
Mm.
head will move one way and the second you move your mouse, it just it's not ideal.
Yeah.
You're almost
Yeah.
better
So
off
it.
using it without head tracking and just holding down C. Anyways, there's people who made entire videos on the best way to use the Atlas without wanting to throw it off the space station. So, you know,
Hmm.
I recommend everybody go watch that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't you know, I haven't. I love the Atlas. I love the idea of the Atlas.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, the use right now is not ideal because you have these
Yeah.
ICTs, right? How cool would it be to go walking through the ASD with your ICT, but you can't because you can't fit in the elevator.
Hmm.
Let me
Hopefully, they give us
just
some
walk
content
through
around those.
this whole
Well,
place.
okay. So it's maybe a little off track here. Speaking of ships that came out, right? We had the Starlancer Max and then the TAC that showed up.
Hmm
And in the video with the TAC, they're showing us ICTs dropping out and stuff. And I got really excited at that moment because I thought, okay, we're gonna get some like bunker, like true cool bunker missions where we have to go and like raid an outpost, and we're gonna be able to utilize these new toys, right? We can drop in ICTs. They'll have to fight. We'll have to provide close air support with a Starlancer TAC or something, and that type of content's just MIA. And I got really excited for that. So
Yeah, I I have a very big love hate relationship with the TAC. I love the way it looks. I love the weapon loadout. I love the interior space, but I can't stand fucking flying it because it is the slowest goddamn thing ever. I don't even care about the windshield. Like people have problems with that on MISC. I'm like, it doesn't
oh
bother me.
no.
I'm fine with it.
Right. If you're flying on mouse and keyboard like I am, just right click. You zoom in a little bit. It's fine. Um, I I've grown to love the Starlancer Max because when I first started playing, that's a little bit of history. When I first started playing Star Citizen, I had started out originally back in October 23 with the Mustang pack, and then I wanted to play back. Wanted got into it in the end of 2024. I started playing with my buddy Friction, and his brother Zebra was going to join us. So I upgraded that to a Pisces, and that's got 3 seats, so we could run around and do things. And then I really started getting into the game and streaming the game. So I was using the Pisces as my little delivery ship because they had those box missions. And then I started getting into hauling. So, I took those real small hauling missions that were like max 6 SCU, which you can actually fit fit in there. You trap yourself in the Pisces with the boxes, and then you go and drop it off. And so from there, I got a freelancer, and then it quickly grew in hauling. And I was like, okay, well, I need a bigger ship, so I got the Freelancer Max. And then the Starlancer Max came out, and I was like, okay, I'm getting that. So I ended up with the Starlancer Max, and it's been my favorite ship in the game, probably my most used ship in the game. And the dash is so big, people complain, but it's your canvas. The dash is your canvas. I was stacking beers up there and plushies up there with my friends, and I started calling it
That's
the
true.
Slum
This is
Lancer.
gonna have the greatest dash in the game because you'll be
Yeah,
able to
that's what
put
I'm
every
saying.
single item from the game on the dash.
Yeah, all the little trinkets and stuff we get from like the sitcom pack and all this stuff. I'm gonna have my plushies up there. I'm gonna have empty bottles up there. We're gonna have a good time with it. But yeah, that like I've grown to love the Star Lancer. Like there's little tricks to get in and out of it real quick. You can load it up real quick once you get good with the multi tool. Which now with the multi tool change that they made, that thing's gonna be cakewalk to load and unload.
The Max is really great for cargo. I will say
Uh,
they've thought it out pretty well. That whole center spine that comes down like that
mhm.
was very well done, and it does make it easy to load from almost any angle, right? From the sides,
Mm-hmm.
from the back, like
Oh yeah,
it's
you can
pretty good
load it
ship
up
for cargo. For
real quick.
medium cargo, I think it's probably for me the strongest one,
Yeah,
except for
definitely.
maybe now the Asgard. But
Yes, the Asgard is, the Cutlass 2.0, the Cutlass's big brother, as I like to call it. Um,
XL
but
Cutlass.
yeah, yeah, so Cutlass, true, true. But again, with the Star Lancer series and going back and liking the look and the aesthetics of it, it's not a. You look at the ship and you're like, it should be faster than it is. And I've
Yeah,
been
Bert
playing
points it out. Why have these massive
CIG.
freaking engines that go
Please
2 miles
buff the
per hour?
speed. And it's like, if you're in attack and if you're trying to provide air support in atmosphere with that thing, you're not getting away from anything.
No, you're not.
I
You
I
can't even
literally
keep up with anything. You can only keep up with a Polaris or an Idris. That's the only things you can keep up with. And you're like just as fast as a Polaris, pretty much in attack. And that
mhm,
is what drives me insane. I just
yes.
can't get past that. And I bought it. I pledged for that ship, and I
Hmm.
never ever fly it.
But the Polaris
No, the
or
tag.
the attack? Oh, the
Attack.
attack, yeah. Yeah, no, I had upgraded the attack. I had attack and a max at one point, and the attack quickly became a C2 because I really like hauling. I like doing
C2 is a
cargo.
great ship. Sounds super good
Yeah.
all arounder. Actually, you can
Hmm.
utilize it as a drop ship or cargo or just yeah. I think the C2 is probably one of the top 10 ships they've designed in these 13 years.
Yeah, yeah. Um, the C2 became a Carrack, and I'm waiting for the Carrack expedition so I can upgrade to a Perseus. So the biggest ship I'm going to have will be the Perseus, and then I got to get a Starlancer Max again because I had to melt the Starlancer in the C2 to get the Carrack.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Carrick's
but
another one that's one of my top 10s.
I did enjoy the C2 when I had it. C2 has some really cool skins that go along with it. The new little pack that came out, that new skin for the Starlancer series, looks really cool. I like it. But I don't have a Starlancer, unfortunately. But when I do get a Starlancer again, it's going to be the Max, just because I don't know that ship has grown on me. I
Just
like
buy
the
it in
look of
game. It's
it.
cheap. It's like
I,
9 million.
it is. I do have enough in game to buy it too, so
That's
I'll
what I
probably
did. Is
just
I
buy it in game. But I don't know.
bought it
There's
in
something
game.
about like actually owning it with like LTI or something. I don't know that to me feels really good. Just so I know when like 1.0 drops or whatever, and we have a wipe, I could just start out with it. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So, but Yeah.
I mean, I think I'll have to do a podcast on that eventually because I think there's a lot to talk about when it comes to like everything everybody will have, all the ships they'll already have access to, and all the gear and stuff. When 1.0 drops, there's going to be a pretty reasonable percentage of people who are going to have, I don't know if I would necessarily call it a leg up, but definitely a head start. Leg up really depends on the gameplay you're going for, but
Hmm.
uh, they'll have a head start. So I think that's a whole other discussion to have. But
Yeah,
um,
that is something to hash out and like plan for. So that yeah, that's a whole different discussion though.
I was gonna say, well, the Ironclad will be cool. I'm actually kind of looking forward to the Ironclad, but again, I don't really drop money on ships anymore. I the last things I did was upgrade the max to attack, and then take my C2 and make that a Perseus. So I actually do have a ship to look forward to at the end of the year, which is the Perseus. I think it's gonna probably come out in November around IAE. Um, and we'll see. But let's see. What is chat saying? Dunk. What up, Dunk? I feel like they'll use crafting and ship go great. So that's something we didn't really talk about when we chatted about crafting. One of the things we've known about for a while, and they just kind of reiterated, was that everything you craft will have different tiers. And they also went as far as to tell us that the materials you gather will have different tiers. And that I'm not a huge fan of. And the reason why is because how many tiers are you guys going to have? What's going to make it so that we get these higher tiers? Is it just location? And the higher tier minerals are in this location compared to this other location? Is it going to be how you mine them? So you have to have better drill bits or better attachments on your ships and stuff like that in
It's a really
order.
good point.
Is it going to be the way you refine it that determines how pure? The reason why I break that all up is because it adds a lot of steps for us and more importantly for them in order to make that whole system. So if they're planning on like iron has 5 or 6 different tiers and tungsten has 5 or 6, that's just a lot. I don't necessarily think we have to do that. So I would personally think the refining method or um, how you're gathering them would make more sense to me. Um,
Yeah,
to
to add, I don't really understand where they're going with the quality of materials because, I mean, iron is iron, but how you refine it is
right,
what's going to make the difference. So, hopefully they go down that road if they're going to go down that road. But to me, if I go out and I spend the time to find a rock, do I have to worry about how I break that rock and mine that rock? And then after that, okay, like how much time am I spending to find that quality material? Like you said, is it in a certain spot, and is that spot highly contested because other orgs or people want this material because they want a high quality item, or is it going to be just random number generator? Is it going to be around the verse anywhere? And then so you got all that time spent in that, and then how do I refine it? And if I refine it at whatever is available to me, am I going to lose that quality or am I just going to get far less of it? Like how's that going to work out?
yeah,
So,
quality versus quantity kind of thing. Um,
hmm
I don't know how crazy they'll go on the stats um, as a buff. Will it
hmm
be each tier is a 10% increase? Will it be a 5% increase? Will it be a 20% increase? Like how crazy will they go?
yeah.
Because then that can make for some really mismatched fights. I have normal crafted attritions, but he has high tier
Yeah.
crafted attritions, and he just lit me up in 5 seconds. So
Yeah, like to me, I'm not as a someone who's big into first person shooters. I don't like things that give somebody an advantage over me based off of some artificial thing, right? So if to me things should be on a level playing field, and it should be the skill of the player that really makes the difference, and not okay. Well, if we both have the same weapon, but they have a higher quality made one, they're just going to have an advantage over me. I personally don't like that.
and
Um,
that's where I think it's gonna get weird.
Yeah.
And that could just be growing pains, and they may figure it out, and they hopefully will. But I think people make another good point in chat, which is that with ship sales, they were supposed to stop selling ships with 1.0. I do not see how that is going to be possible. I think that a positive, like we were talking about earlier, is the lack of JPEGs being sold. That's a step in the right direction, but I don't know if they'll go fully no more ship sales. You know what I think will be the key defining factor in that will be Squadron 42's success or failure.
Hmm.
Squadron 42 doesn't do well, they're going to be selling us a lot more stuff for a lot longer. Squadron
Yep.
42 does very well, they may not.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a big question there what the model changes into after 1.0. I
Yeah.
mean, it's, if it's a live service game, are they going to do any sort of thing like a battle pass? Are they just going to rely on cosmetics? How's that going to work? I could see them selling lower level things that aren't like pay to win. So, you know, your starter
Skins,
ships
paints.
or tier one like light fighters, stuff like that. Stuff to give people a step up at the beginning, but not just not like, oh, we're going to be handing out Kraken and javelins and stuff like that. A
Here's a
pay to
railgun
win
and
aspect.
infinite ammo. Yeah, no, they won't. I don't
Yeah.
think that'll happen. I don't think that'll happen.
Yeah.
I hope not.
Hmm.
Um,
So yeah, so that's going to be really interesting when we get to that point. I'm all for letting people customize themselves and pay for cosmetics of things because we have ship skins, we have armors, we have all sorts of gear items that we can purchase in game. There's going to be, or not in game, but on the store. There's also just fun little items for decorating your hangar or your place. So we'll see how it goes.
yeah, I agree. Okay, now we're gonna talk about one of the juicy ones, instancing, which is perfect because I saw Aussie Viking came in earlier, and he the other day had some thoughts about that. I know a lot of people have some strong feelings about instancing. To kind of give everybody the idea of what's going on with it is, so originally a lot of people believed that Star Citizen would be a completely open world sandbox. So to bring up the idea of instancing, and if you don't know what instancing is essentially you go into a place or an area that is actually separated from the rest of, well, I guess in Star Citizen we would now call it the shard, or for other games would be the servers that are all attached. So it's something that you're doing outside of the server with all the other people. Exactly. Think of it like a WoW dungeon. So you queue up to do an instance, to do these dungeons. You go into this place. You are alone in this place. People cannot come into this place when you're there, or into the same place you are. They would be in another instanced place. So just to give a little bit of definition of what we're talking about. So you said earlier you liked instancing. You thought it was a positive, right? Um, what what do you say to those who wish it was never to come into the game and that the game remained completely open world sandbox?
Okay. Okay. So I think to me, I would say to those people, sorry, I've got like a scratch in the back of my throat.
You're good.
I would say to those people, it wouldn't bring along the level of content that we're looking for to keep the game interesting and keep playing it, right? For either new players or for the people that are going to, main this game and play it all the time. Um, I think instancing is something that's necessary, especially when you're going for the MMO aspect of this game, and it'll allow us to have fun narratives and missions to do without being disturbed by outside sources. When you think of it, the aspect of having it open all the time, that's a lot of load on servers. And if you can break off into your own instance to do a mission without bugs, without um, without little things going wrong, that is going to be a huge quality of life improvement for the game.
I agree. I think I understand where people are coming from for two reasons.
Hmm.
One, they were told it was supposed to be one way, so they expect it to be that way. So I understand that. Then I
Yeah,
also understand those who want to have that truly open world experience where everything is accessible all the time, everywhere, at any moment. But the
yeah.
reality is, unfortunately, with that kind of a game, it's almost impossible to curate a story.
Hmm.
Why? Well, we can see it already with Hathor. I always use as an example, or even when you go do the worm, the Valakar over in Pyro, there are story pieces there. There are bits and pieces of data and emails and stuff you can read, but the problem is when you have the constant threat of PvP, you don't actually have, or most people don't decide to take the time to look for it. Because you'd have to have somebody covering you. It's like, hey, I'm going to look for this data pad. Cover me. And you're like, what? No, there's a 3-man team that just came in. Get the fuck away from that.
Yeah,
I
Uh,
think there will always be risk in the verse, and not just
I
from
agree. Yeah.
elevators. There will always be risk in because you've got to get from one space to the next. I think maybe what I don't understand is, or maybe sometimes what it comes off to me as is, I think people are looking at it as like, oh, these people are going to constantly be unavailable for me to interact with. And I don't think that's true. That one of the
Hmm.
things that they pointed out at SitCon was that you're gonna be able to PvP all the way up until you enter the instance and the second you come out. And they're gonna be in defined areas, so you will probably get campers who will, hang out around these points hoping to intercept somebody, which I don't think I'd call it campers. It's just really more of the same with piracy of and not much more different from
Hmm.
people who hang out with quantum traps open. Um
Yeah, and just to add, hopefully it's not at specific doors, right?
mhm.
Hopefully that instance is like I'm coming out of atmosphere and I can come out of atmosphere any direction from that instance. Did
Well, it
they also
depends. I
say
think
that there was going to be PvP inside the instance?
well, no, what they said was there was going to be certain instances that are going to be closed to a group. So you go in as a
Hmm.
group, and there will
Yep.
be other instances with open slots, free slots for randoms to come in. Now, what they didn't specify, I don't believe, is whether that's going to be something for a instance PvP, which would be kind of weird since Arena Commander exists. And I think the
Hmm.
idea is still to have Arena Commander be a part of the verse at some
Yeah.
point. Like something you access through a space station or a gaming arena at a city or something like that.
Hmm.
Um, when you're talking about instancing, you're not talking about the entire verse becomes, segregated or sliced up so that nobody interacts with each other. Those interactions will still be there. You're still going to go to a station where other people are at. You're still going to be flying through the same space where other people are at. You can still go to contested zones. You can still do Hathor. Those things won't be instants, but certain specific content. Think of it as like doing a big contract where it's just story driven. It's like doing
Well, they're yeah. I
just
mean, they're
any
gonna have.
mission and just somebody's talking to you, kind of like you used to see all the time in single player games, and you're just moving through it, and certain cues are hitting things and triggering things and events, and that's why I think Siege being an instanced event makes so much sense. And realistically, sorry, when Siege dropped, I don't know if you ever got to try out Siege, but you
Mhm.
couldn't really go attack it and try to pirate it. It was rather complicated. The only way you could was if you went far enough into the event, then camped up in a building or some roof, and then started taking out players as they show up. Which, well, the event itself was so all over the place in terms of performance that that could be a good or waste of time. Like, it could be a good fun time or most likely a waste of time because people would just stop
Yeah.
going to it once they realized it was broken. And one of the problems that they explained, and I get this, was because they left it open. It was because it was only designed for a certain amount of people. You'd have a first wave of people who'd come in and trigger the beginning. And then you'd have another group come in, but they wouldn't get the same triggers because, well, those triggers had already been done. So
Mm-hmm.
there are people who went through the entirety of Siege without realizing that there was a voice line or anything at any point,
There was a
or
whole
there were
lot missing.
bosses, or yeah.
Yeah. I know. I think I did Siege a couple of times with friends, and I was really, really new to the game, but able to do it because I'm an FPS player. So, from what I remember, it's Siege of Orison, right? I remember going up on platforms and fighting NPCs and stuff, but I don't think we were ever really able to complete the mission just because it was bugged at the time, or it
You
was.
had to really be dedicated and looking for the right server,
Hmm.
or you had to hope somebody completed it, wait an hour for it to reset, and then you had to be like one of the first ones there in
Yeah.
order to do everything and see everything. Because there was containers on the sides you could get codes for, and you can get extra loot, and there was a different lieutenants. And I remember one of my experiences at Siege was hilarious. Big old group of like 20, 30 people going through, all randoms, or small little groups working together.
Hmm.
And we all arrived at one of the boss spots, and we couldn't find him, so everybody starts looking. Then somebody starts yelling in VoIP, found him. We all run to that spot. His head was sticking out by half an inch from the floor. It's the only way we knew.
Spawned in the floor.
And I'm not kidding. Everyone there was so dedicated. We spent like 15, 20 minutes firing all our ammo, throwing grenades, rail guns, sniper rifles, missile launchers, just anything we could. And eventually he died. And then the same thing happened with the next lieutenant, and then half the people left. But so there, that kind of thing would be great. And yes, I know there's, well, they haven't really done well with their tech overall as a cohesive experience. I agree. But that, in theory, typically gets better as you get everything in and everything starts to actually have to work together. That's
Hmm.
what's really annoying and frustrating on both ends is people who understand how these things kind of get built know that there's different steps. The problem is the rest of us have to deal with these these holes, these gaps within what we're trying to do without necessarily understanding why. And as
Hmm.
I'm playing through an alpha, it gets very frustrating the longer you're in the experience, right? So like I'm more frustrated probably than you are because you've been in a year and I've been in 3. Someone like Aristavo who's been in for 13, he's way more frustrated than you and I combined. Like there's different levels, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah. Well, I mean, he's had a lot of things promised to him that haven't come to fruition or have been pushed to the side, which I could totally understand. Having been in a few early development games, I have a decent amount of patience for things and an understanding that yeah, there's people behind this. They're trying to make it work. They're doing their best, and they're creating a product for us and creating entertainment for us. But you know, uh, at some point, it's like where does it give? When do we turn away from trying to support something that's either broken or you know um, isn't providing what we had thought it was going to be.
right.
But I think they're doing a good job. There isn't really anything to me that has quite the same experience, which is why I keep coming back to this. And also the community around this game. It's just there's a wonderful set of people around this that are actually passionate about Star Citizen and the game, and that I've created friendships around this, a community that follows, like I'm part of, that follows me, that comes and watches and comments, and it sits in chat, and I've got a good group of friends now. We go play other games with now too. It's been an amazing experience this last year playing Star Citizen
I
and
agree.
seeing.
SC has the best community I've ever come across in a game by
Hmm.
far. Um,
Yeah.
the only
And
MMO I'm actually always interested in. And I think
Yeah,
Dirk
and
makes a good point of you should not be playing this every day, all day. It will wear on you. And like you said, it's important to, with the other people you know from Star Citizen, to help them step away once in a while and play something
right.
else.
Yes, I mean, I had a. There was one thing that really turned me off, and it was when I had a med bed. Uh, Speaking of like the Star Lancer attack, I had a med bed issue right after that had come out, where I kept respawning in my med bed back at Microtech, and it was intermittent. It would be 1 minute, it would be 5 minutes, but I would just respawn back in the med bed. And me and my friends spent a day and a half trying to figure it out I had to, until we figured out that if I got a crime stat and when I went to respawn, it would put me in Kleischer, the jail. That's what broke it. And then after I broke it, I couldn't access my home inventory for the rest of that patch. So I had to step away from the game
I
and
did not
just go.
have a personal hanger the entirety of the last patch, and I did not have any inventory, including purchase pledged items, for the first day of the patch.
Yeah,
I lost
yeah.
everything. But then it came back. I still didn't have a personal hanger, which sucked. But now I have a personal hanger and my stuff, so
So
back on
you're good to
track.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, back on track. Yeah, no, it's yeah. There's things we run into, and my friends tried to help me through it. We figured it out eventually. It's those types of things that are oddly fun once you get it figured out, but it's very frustrating until you do. Um, so it's I don't know the weird things we do as gamers, I guess.
Yeah. What we
Trying
get
to break
obsessed
games or
with, what we
unbreak
hyper
games.
focus on.
Yeah,
What,
like
yeah.
you seeing the crown of some dude's head in the floor, and you're trying to figure out a way to damage them so you can complete whatever mission. That's what we do.
Yeah. Oh, and Viking, I lost my ICT 3 patches ago. I gave up on trying to get an ICT. I'll wait. However long it takes, I'll wait and get another one later.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay. So I don't know. We're gonna kind of switch into some stuff they didn't talk about now.
Hmm.
The first one being, and for me, the most egregious, Squadron 42.
Okay.
So, okay,
Oh.
since you're a year into this, let's call it a
Hmm.
year, um, or do you have any interest in Squadron 42? Have you pledged for that? Are you not caring at all? Are you not a single player game person? Like, what are your thoughts on Squadron 42 without going into, you know,
So I think I missed the point in where concierge like you like get a copy of it or whatever. I don't think I have access to Squadron 42. I am highly interested in it just because I think the single player experience will be much better than what I've experienced on the multiplayer side of it, right? Because
mm,
that's a closed experience. And it should be all the bugs should technically be hashed out for the most part. That's being a canned experience. Those things should go well. Based on the trailers and things that I've seen, I'm excited for, and it looked like they, from what I heard, were wrapping up development of it, and I was more excited the fact that if they're wrapping up development of that, then hopefully those teams can start to work on Star Citizen, and we should see a ramp up of production in Star Citizen, which I think we have in terms of story and content in the last year, as well as them pledging for the stability of the game. But Star Citizen, not Star Citizen, Squadron 42, I'm excited for. I probably will purchase and play, um, and stream and share that with my community and my experience with that. But based off the level of interactivity that I saw in the trailer for it, I'm looking forward to it.
okay. So, the chat's already started saying this. So just to give some context as to why I find it egregious, all right? Yes,
Yeah.
they said they weren't going to talk about it, and they
Hmm.
didn't. They stuck to their word for that. But the reason why I think it's egregious, and the reason why I think it's unacceptable to not get anything about Squadron 42 right now, is because, well, two reasons. The first one being it is a part of the initial Kickstarter. It is, to be conservative, I'll say 50% of the initial Kickstarter, because there was a lot of, I'm not going to call it misinformation, but we'll say confusion from a lot of people as to what came first, the chicken or the egg. No, sorry, Squadron 42 or Star Citizen. And the reality is they were both announced at the same time. I had to go do my research on this last week, and
Hmm.
the original post or the original Kickstarter, both are mentioned. It was brought up as a Squadron 42 will be the single player experience you play to learn everything and to then to be dumped into the verse once you're done playing it. I think that's evolved. I don't know if they'll do it exactly like that anymore. I don't see how exactly that would work. But the for me it's a little unacceptable to be now 2 years after they told us it was feature complete and to have nothing coming out about it. And when I finally post this YouTube video I've been editing for a week later tonight, you'll all know why. Basically, the last 20 minutes is me going off on that.
Go watch
So,
it, chat.
but my thinking with that is, it's it's at least half of the reason why this whole project started. It's now 2 years after it's been said to be feature complete. Why do we not have more info? I'm not asking for a release date. I've kind of made my peace with that. But for me, one of the main things that drew me into the game was Squadron 42. I love single player space games. I love space operas. Mass Effect is one of my favorite games of all time. So give me a good narrative story. Give me a good space opera. Give me good. I'd be happy. I'd be
Hmm.
so happy. Be so happy. The second reason why I think it's a big issue that we didn't hear about it is because it's been 2 years since supposedly feature complete. Where's 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 the game? Like, we last
Yeah,
year saw an hour and a half demo that
which was
worked
pretty
for the most part,
pretty freaking cool. Yeah, to me that felt like that was getting pretty close on everything we saw.
right?
Yeah.
And so, go check out my video. But no, one of the things for the plug. No, okay. So
Yeah.
one of the reasons why that annoys me is because I think now I'm more and more convinced that something went wrong. And the two opinions that kind of are winning for me are either they had giant Maelstrom engine problems and the game isn't working the way it should, which is why most of the feature people are not working on the verse right now, and they're back in Squadron 42 trying to fix whatever's gone wrong there. Or the second option is they got it feature complete, which, if I'm being honest, personally I do believe they may not have been 100%, but 90-95% feature complete. I Maybe they were just doing some last polishes on features. I'm willing to believe that, because I mean, just everything we've seen over the last 2 years, it kind of almost points towards that. But where it gets really weird is, well, they're not communicating on it. So if that is true, if it was pretty much feature complete and just being polished and worked on and refined, why are we now 2 years later and no info? And I think the second option is, well, they finished it, they played it, and it was only 20 hours long, and they're like, shit, can't can't release this as is. It's not fun enough. It's not long enough. It wouldn't justify a $70-$80 price tag, which I'm sure they want to put on the game. Why, I'm so happy I got mine for $20. But same problem Dirk has. I can't get rid of my starter pack because, well, my Squadron 42 copy's tied to it. So I love my Andromeda. Um, so for me, the two options are something went really wrong with Maelstrom the engine. That's why the feature people are all over there trying to fix things or work on it. Or they realize, oh crap, this is not something that is polished enough, is enjoyable enough, more gameplay wise, or the story is just too short. And the more you look at everything that's kind of come out and the lack of info, also, I just kind of scratch my head and go, is that what's going on with Squadron? Now, again, this is all conjecture. I'm making assumptions, right? Just based off the information that we have or the lack of information we have.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like they're valid. They're they're valid because and I'm curious to see what you think as somebody who's a bit more recent into this whole uh, black hole that
As
is CIG and Star Citizen. But
yeah, to me, feature complete would mean that they have the components there for the features that they want, not necessarily that the game is developed. So they have the features that they want in the game, meaning, the like the different aspects of the multi-tool, or the engineering aspects or the crafting aspects, those things that are within the game. So now that they have the basic structure and the bones of it all set together, the features of the game, they can actually start exploring those and creating content around those for the story. That's
okay,
the way I view that.
so maybe they had their platform done, is what you're saying, and now they're
Hmm.
building out and finishing all the missions, and it's just taken longer because of X, Y, and Z, or
Yeah.
whatever.
And I don't know, what they have for a writing team for the stories and stuff. The narrative that we've been getting, the story that we've been getting, at least on Star Citizen, has been, it's interesting, but it doesn't feel like super in depth. And maybe there's a bunch that I'm missing, but I don't know.
No,
Like I don't
you're
know.
100% right, and I think there are
Yeah.
some talented people on that team. One in
Hmm.
particular always stands out to me because just when he speaks about it
Hmm.
you can tell he likes what he does, right? And those
Yeah.
are typically big tells for good writers, people who are into storytelling, is they enjoy their own story. If you don't enjoy your own story, well, the chances of somebody else enjoying it are pretty slim.
Yeah.
Um, just FYI.
Yeah.
The other problem is you can enjoy your story and others can't. Like, I have to read a lot of scripts in my business, and holy shit, it's like
Hmm.
some are not so good. Um,
Yeah.
but they're convinced they're the greatest things in sliced bread. But anyways,
Hmm.
I think what I hope what we've seen in the verse so far is not an indicator for the story of Squadron, and I don't think it is. Just in that hour and a half of gameplay we got in the demo last year, you didn't get the sense that it was just a lot of talk for nothing. It might be in the end, depending on where they decide to go with the story and how it plays out. Um, but I think they're trying to establish a universe. They're trying to establish these characters to give them meaning, to give them depth. When you take the time and you make the effort to do that, you're typically fleshing out something bigger and not necessarily great, but there's strong chances it'll be pretty good. Um, One of the biggest problems I had with Netflix's Star Wars Red, whatever the hell it was called, Rebel Moon, whatever the fuck that thing was called, is they
Hmm.
tried to do too much way too quickly, and you kind of felt like you guys could have used an extra movie to really set this all up and you know set the tone and the skill. Jupiter, whatever, the Wachowski,
Thought it was
same thing. They
that was
they
Rebel
suffered
Moon.
from a little bit. They needed a little bit more setup. Like they needed a little
Yes,
more
Rebel
depth.
Moon, right?
Yeah, Rebel Moon. Yeah, it's a
Yep.
Star Wars knockoff. It was the Temu Star Wars. Sorry. um,
I tried watching that. It felt really hard to follow. Like you start at a weird point. Like there's all these things that aren't explained to you.
and that's
I,
something that modern storytelling thinks is fine. I tend to disagree. Um, and it's not a memorable story. I don't remember much about Rebel Moon. I remember everything about the first three Star Wars because these were easy stories to follow that weren't overly complicated, that were fun and
mm-hmm.
engaging, that
Yeah.
most people could relate to. And
Yeah.
that's just the
That's
point
that's
I'm trying to make. And I think to go off what you
yeah.
were saying is,
Mm-hmm.
in it's very light what we're getting in the verse right now in terms of story. It's their
Mm-hmm.
first kind of, dipping a toe into storytelling in an MMO, which is very different to storytelling in a single player, more linear
Mhm.
experience, which is what we're
Yeah.
going to get with Squadron. So, um, yeah, that's story wise. But did you want to hear anything about Squadron this sitcon? Are you
I,
disappointed you didn't? Does it not really?
I wasn't focused on that, but now that you've mentioned it, yeah, I would like to have heard something because we haven't heard anything within what the last year from that hour and a half gameplay demo that they showed, and that is showing a peak moment in the game. And while we know the actors, a lot of the actors that have been put into the game, we don't really know their characters or the story behind them or what brought them to this point. So it's, I mean, it would be nice to see a bit more to the game other than some space fighting. Show us a bit more on the planets and maybe a city that they've been working on, or like some other bits of the story. What was shown doesn't really give us it doesn't really give us much,
I'm
if that
okay
makes
with
sense.
not knowing what the story is gonna be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with having an idea because um,
Well, you don't
you
you
tell
don't want to give
everybody
away
what it's
too
gonna be
much.
about. Like there's good and bad trailers. It's really hard to make a bad trailer, but a bad trailer is actually you don't actually realize it's a bad trailer until you've seen the movie because well that's when you realize that the entire movie was explained to you in the trailer. It
Mm-hmm.
ruins the experience a little bit. That doesn't happen super often. It happens typically for terrible movies, but
Good.
because they don't have anything to say. The lack of
I,
knowledge on the story doesn't bother me so much as the lack of communication on we're moving forward, or
yeah.
we're not going to spoil everything for you, but don't worry guys. Like even that, even though it's kind of like a trust me bro, like it's right now we're getting
We're
trust me bro from last year with just stop
yeah.
talking about it. So like
Yeah.
the
I
game
mean,
that shall not be named.
all his backers, people that have bought ships or invested into the game in some way, right? I do feel that we deserve to hear something about the process into the game. Not necessarily, like you said, a sneak peek into the story or reveal any more, but just let us know where you are at in the process with the game.
Yeah.
So, I mean, okay, well, if your feature complete, what have you built around that, I guess? And where do you feel that the game stands? And what is your tentative, like, hey, are we looking at another year? Are we looking at 2 years of development to build out this single player experience? Where are we at in the process? Just let us know. And something could have been said at SitCon because, you know,
It's
this is
sitcom.
Star Citizen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the verse. I feel like that's the
Yeah.
perfect place to mention something about
Mm,
Squadron 42.
yeah.
It's really the only place because you can't really mention it at IAE. That's a entirely Star Citizen verse driven event with ship sales in the verse. You
Hmm.
can't really mention it at what's the other one? Crap. ISC? No, not ISC. What the fuck am I
Uh,
talking about? No,
Invictus.
Invictus because again, that's a military. Well, I guess maybe you could find a way to tie it into Invictus, but those are more pure verse or known as pure verse moments. Now,
Yeah, it's. I mean, the only other place really is like the This Week in Star Citizen or whatever that they produce, which is when they've, at least as far as I'm aware, mentioned things. But other than that,
but then
you
this
know,
last year we've gotten very little ISCs, which is good and bad. It means they're not taking as much time out of their day to talk about the things they're working on and they're actually working on them, but it also means that us as backers and followers of the project have been a little starved for what's going on.
hmm
Now, to go back onto one of the things that Dirk mentioned earlier, I think they are making progress. I think it's still moving forward. I don't think the game's been scrapped. I don't think they're starting over from whatever. I don't think anything extreme because he mentions they re-recorded some lines. That's not a big deal. Movies do it all the time, right up until 2-3 weeks before the movie comes out. Um, re-recording lines, adding additional lines, stuff like that, maybe another mocap session. That's not a big deal. Those are small things, and those things can happen all the way up until the end. But that does go to prove that they are still working on it and things are happening.
Mm-hmm.
But the lack of communication, we won't talk about it at SitCon, and they don't talk about it at SitCon. And like I said, well, congrats, you kept your word. Good on you. But at the same time, no, you should have talked to us about it. Even if it was 5 minutes or 2 minutes of Chris Roberts being like, yo, I swear it still exists. We're working on it. It's coming. We'll talk more about it soon, TM. Like, even
Mm-hmm.
that would have been, now, even though he probably would have gotten a bunch of crap for it, that would have still been like, it's real. It's on our mind. It feels right now like it's just like information embargo on Squadron 42. Now, I mentioned this in my video. That could be a positive thing if their marketing strategy is to be more of a surprise. And I think,
Yeah.
personally, and I go, this is where my hopium comes in and really shines through, is I've always wanted them to just do a surprise release of Squadron. I hate the anticipation of something coming out. I hate
The
waiting.
greedy
Like, I
side of
know it
you.
comes out in a month or two. Fuck, why am I waiting? Just give it to me now. I'm like Cartman
Mm.
waiting for his Nintendo, what was it, the Switch or
Yeah.
whatever, the Wii, and he
Mm-hmm.
freezes himself in the snow. I would be that idiot. I would potentially, yeah. Anyways, so
Yeah.
just give me the damn thing. Just like, stop,
Right.
like, I
Well,
think.
it
Anyways, yeah.
when
Sorry.
it comes to yeah, when it comes to releases of games and stuff and the marketing that goes around that to build up hype for it to help drive sales, you know, maybe they just don't feel like they're close enough at that point to start building hype for Squadron 42, or they're getting close to the end and they got their heads down, they're trying to take care of it, and and then they can announce it and start to build
I
that
think you're
hype.
right. Like the reasonable Letired says that's probably true.
Yeah.
The
The other
impatient
part of
Letired
me,
goes, but but
the other part of me goes to, okay, how big is CIG's development team? And look at what we've done in Star Citizen in the last year in creating a more stable verse. And I hope we can all agree that things have been a bit more stable. Based off of, I'm basing it off of this last year of me playing. I remember spending 8 hours dealing with bugs and getting nowhere in the game around Christmas last year. And I'm not dealing with nearly as much as that much pain now. So, uh, maybe they've pulled some people off to help with creating, with stabilizing, creating a better player experience for Star Citizen. That's the other part of where my brain goes on top of, like I mentioned before, maybe they've got their heads down, but
I
splitting
think you're
resources
right.
between two experiences is difficult.
I think the reasonable way to look at it is it's still being worked on, and we will hopefully get something sooner than later. But I don't think that takes away from the frustration that some of us may feel, that I
No,
personally
no.
feel. I think it's when something is backer funded, there's a reasonable expectation of transparency, or a certain
Definitely.
amount of transparency. And I think CAG for a certain amount of years had been decent at transparency. Not great, but not terrible. Decent. I think recently, this last year, the transparency has kind of gone away.
Mm.
Um, and that's kind of been masked by, oh, no more feature drive. Now it's content drive and performance and stability. And again, like you said, I don't, if you were here in December and January of last year and the beginning of this year, and you're here now and you're still playing, you have to notice that there's a difference. Like, it's you may have forgotten it, you may not have remembered how bad it was at times when 4.0 just dropped, but
Mm-hmm.
Them were some rough times. And what's funny is even though it was rough, so many of us were excited by Pyro that we just pushed through. Just pushed right through. It was like, screw it, we'll deal with the bugs. But the problem is eventually down the line that does wear you out a little bit more, and
Mm-hmm.
you maybe lose a little bit of patience on something smaller that other people wouldn't have an issue with. But um to wrap up on Squadron, I'm really hopeful it comes out sooner than later. I'm very afraid they'll push it to 2027. I just don't think that's good for the project. Now, a lot of people who are already in Star Citizen are like, oh, we don't care. No, we're used to it now. Another year or two. You know, what's another year or two? Except you say that for enough time and you're 40 years later. Now, I don't necessarily
Mm-hmm.
think that'll happen,
Yeah.
but I think for the people outside of the game, for the people who have been following this project but haven't taken the dive yet, Squadron 42, maybe they're into the verse. Um, Squadron 42. I mean, a lot of people who are huge fans of Mass Effects, I think, will love playing Squadron 42, or I hope they will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or if you were a fan of playing Freelancer, if you were a fan of playing, or even of the more recent games like Spaceborne 2 or Everspace, if you thought those were cool but they were a little too arcade for you and you want something a little deeper, Squadron 42 should be the perfect fit for those people. Um, but those people don't have the same understanding or patience because, well, they haven't dumped money into the game. They haven't decided to back yet. They're just following it from afar, and they find it very funny. And I know a group of people like that who haven't bought the game, have been following the project for sometimes longer than I have, and they still won't buy it. And they're like, "Why? Why would I? This not doesn't have what I want yet. It doesn't have, you know." I listen to you to complain about your experience in the game, and it doesn't make me want to play. I'm like, yeah, but you have to understand. You start to make up these excuses. But anyways, just the whole point of that is just to kind of point out that there's people who play Star Citizen, there's people who don't, and just because you play Star Citizen doesn't mean you should excuse everything that's happening. And Aussie Viking kind of makes a good point. Sometimes it feels like smoke and mirrors. Look at this shiny thing over here and don't ask about Squadron. And that's kind of how I feel about this last sitcon. Is like, look at this stuff that we're doing in the verse, and the verse is moving forward, and look at this content. Don't
Mm-hmm.
ask about Squadron. Like,
Yeah.
that's a big no-no. And then the other side, you have people who are outside of the game, who are interested, who are curious, who've been following it, and well, they might want to jump in, but they're not going to do that until they know there's something concrete. And one of the things that I think CIG can do to buy a lot of goodwill is get Squadron 42 out the door working um, when it comes
Yeah.
out. You know,
Yeah. You give people a solid experience, and I think that will also draw people towards Star Citizen. Um, so hopefully they knock it out of the park with Squadron 42. Hopefully the silence on it is a good thing and not a bad thing. You know, I I do feel you in the frustration of not hearing any snippet about it at SitCon though. There should have been some kind of mention of it because we know it's another project of theirs, and there's a lot of people that are looking forward to it, myself included. I do like single player games. I do like playing a story. Part of why I'm into video games is video games are interactive, immersive experiences, unlike movies or books in that sense. So I really enjoy a good single player game. So I'm hoping Squadron is that.
I hope so as well. And now I want to talk about something that maybe you don't think is a big deal. Something that I was pretty vocal about at SitCon and the day after and since then on my stream. I know it's not something that everybody's going to agree with, and I'm okay with that. But what did you think of their offices?
Thought it was pretty extravagant. I mean, from the visual aspect of it, that's really cool. From the cost aspect of setting that all up, uh, yeah, not really thrilled of it. As someone who's spent a good amount of money on the game, I feel like I've helped fund some of that.
Yeah.
So, not saying they shouldn't have a good place to, you know, get away from the work on a work day to creating the content and stuff that we all strive for or we all want, right? But that was pretty over the top, in my opinion.
Now, one thing I conceded, and I will give them this, is I know certain of these items, like the Bengal, like the life size models with the armor and of Mark Hamill. I don't know
Mhm.
for all of them, but I can assume probably rather accurately that at least a majority of those were probably created for sitcoms or promotional reasons, right? And they just all get
Yeah.
pulled back into the office. That's fine. There's really nothing wrong with that. If it's for a marketing reason at a sitcom, at an event, those are justifiable costs, right? Now, I think just, and the reason why I say this because I'm trying to want to lay down the groundwork, the framework as to why I think this is problematic, is the offices are not a promotional tool. They are not marketing. And this came up when I did this reaction on Sunday, last
Mhm.
Sunday, of, yeah, but they have the right to work in good conditions. Absolutely. No one is saying we're going to go make them work in a, dilapidated warehouse. Absolutely not. But there is a difference between decent working conditions and extravagant working conditions. And I think we are definitely in the more extravagant.
Mhm.
Is it cool objectively? Yeah. I'd love to work
Mhm.
there. But my point with this has kind of been, when Bethesda and Blizzard do it, no one says shit. They made boatloads of money off of games they finished and sold. The
Mhm.
keyword being finished. Because CIG, at least optics wise, is kind of coming off as a company that wants to have that level of notoriety, of recognition, of flex, but unfortunately has not delivered a single finished product in the 13, 14 years that they have been operating, which most game studios are capable of at least releasing one product in that kind of a time frame. Now, granted, this is a much more ambitious, much more advanced technologically project that they're trying to deliver. Granted, I hear all that. But then I think it kind of goes towards my point of why spend that much money on your offices and not on your people and your game.
Yeah. Hire some more developers, whatever you need. Writers, modelers, designers of some sort. Now, like you said, though, if that's all stuff from conventions they've gone to advertise or whatever, that's fine. If they've pulled that all back into the office for that reason, um, okay. If they manage to use it within their space, but if that was all built for the office, it's kind of a questionable thing to do at this point in time. Again, like you said, because they haven't released any finished product. Um, we can see and tangibly, you know, we have things to play like Star Citizen, and we can see the development of that and play in that verse, but it's not a completed product, and it's subject to change, or it might fall through. Like, you know, so again, as somebody that's spent a bunch of money and helped, at least, hopefully have helped the development of this game, I would like to see it go more towards the game itself and not so much, the extravagant uh, cafeteria that I saw.
And that's just one part of the building, right?
Yeah,
So
that was just. I mean, maybe they built it for sitcom to be like that. I don't know if it's like that all
no,
the
because it was
time.
already like that last sitcom.
Aha.
Yeah, we already there. Anyways, to go off of what Dirk says, because I do hear the criticism, right? I do hear it. I don't agree with it necessarily, but I hear it, and I'm trying to understand it. But I think even okay, has CIG had good cash flow? Yes, yes, absolutely. Last 3 years, they've made over 100 million each year. That is not bad cash flow numbers, right? That is not unhealthy. What is unhealthy is that their costs keep going up every year. And the problem is there's a certain point in development on almost any project is you kind of hit this point where you can't control these costs because well, A, they're the final push to get everything over the line and finish most of the time. B, you've grown and accumulated all these costs that are necessary to get you to where you are and hopefully over the line. Um, but unless you're increasing your revenue exponentially to cover that, at some point, you know, the lines do this, right? So your funding goes up, but your expenditures are going up, but your funding is, it's not dipping, but it's kind of hitting a plateau because you can only make so much off of just selling ships, skins, paints. Really what people want is a game to sell more copies of the game. They say 5.3 million copies sold. We know at least 1.5 million of those are alt accounts. I have an alt account. I know people who have two or three. Anyways,
Yeah,
um,
I was just thinking about getting one this morning to start creating content around a new player.
and I think makes sense in certain times if you're like doing zero to heroes. That's the reason why I got it. I never
Mhm.
really saw it to the end. We haven't seen 2024 yet. No, we haven't seen those financials yet. But also, Dirk, point to something to point out is those financials, I believe, are only for the UK. They do not take into account the Austin office. Um, but that's super typical, actually. Financials, you rarely get them. Like I'm not surprised at that, to be honest. Like that's not a huge issue. Um, because you're not going to get them the first of the next year because people don't hand in their taxes, even in the UK. Why is this? So until at least a couple months in, so you'll never really see the numbers right at the beginning or of the next year. So that's normal. The thing I want to point out though is yes, positive cash flow, but they've had to make cuts. And I hear you, Dirk, that more people doesn't equal more faster. I agree with that. But I do think that the more people you have that can be working on different parts of the project, the easier it is. Hopefully, if you do things right and you have proper management, which we know has been an issue sometimes at CIG, you can tie all those things together, and that's where it gets quicker. There's, we know they spent, I believe, about 50 million on the office. Um, that's between, I believe, purchasing the office, renovation, all that stuff. But now I'd have to comb through the document, and I don't think the document has everything, by the way. But you could probably get a decent idea of what they actually all spent. I'm not saying it's panic spending. I'm saying it's inconsiderate spending, and that's more of this idea of trying to present themselves as this great company. And from a creative standpoint, one of the arguments they'll give you is, "Oh, but it helps creativity." No, not necessarily. I think it breeds laziness. But then again, I'll get yelled at for that one. I don't think you need to have the most comfortable, most inspiring space to be creative, to be inspiring. I don't. Actually, the people I find to be the most inspiring and the most creative are the ones who are able to do it with a limited amount of resources. And typically, when you're hungry is when you do your best work. Now, no, I'm not saying keep the devs hungry and in shit conditions. Uh, uh, Dirk, they've been having issues with recruitment. They got so bad that they had to make announcements on their ISCs, which I also thought was a bad look. I may be a bit more old school in that way of thinking though, but I don't think it's okay to show that kind of level of luxury, because really what that is a luxury. And my point is, I don't think it's completely deserved because, again, they haven't released a single project. Good cash flow doesn't necessarily mean that everything's fine and healthy. They do not have private investors. They had some private investors at first, and what we still don't know is exactly the amount. The numbers I've heard go from 50 million at the lowest to 150 million at the highest. Somewhere in the middle of there probably is what they actually received in terms of private funding. And so you could say, well, what if they use that private funding money to build the office? In which case it'd be like, sure, no problem. It wasn't backer money. At that point, do whatever the hell you want. However, if you've ever spoken to someone or ever been around financials or, financiers, investors, if you tell them that you invested their money into building an office, they're going to freaking kill you. That is not something they would find acceptable, because that does not mean revenue or return on investment to them. Quite simply, that's just what it is. So I highly doubt that they use that money to build the office. The other thing is, well, right, more staff doesn't necessarily mean quicker, but when you're cutting staff and you haven't finished releasing the products yet, that raises some question marks. At the beginning of the year, we know they'd released like 150 to 200 devs. Now, that was also in part from a restructuring after the acquisition of Turbulent. That was 300 people, and that grew their numbers to above 1,000. They were at like 1,200, almost 1,300 at one point. And then they cut those people. And so the numbers dropped. Oh, we lost Cody. All right, I'll keep ranting until he comes back. So there's a lot of question marks around what actually they've received in terms of private funding, where exactly their money has gone. Obviously, anyone with half a brain being reasonable can understand and see that most of the money has gone into the game. But, Jared made a joke about this. It's like, oh, do you think devs are allowed to have coffee? And that was from a criticism they had received a few years in the past about their coffee machines and their coffee at the offices. The answer to that is there's a couple layers. One, Chris Roberts loves his coffee. I can't fault the man for loving his coffee. All right, you love your coffee. That's that's your thing. That's what keeps you going. Have your coffee. Should devs have coffee? Yes, devs are allowed to drink coffee. Absolutely. They can even have nice coffee. I'm absolutely for that. I love coffee. If you gave me nice coffee in the office, I'd be a happy human being. Let me drag you back in. Wait. Oh, you gotta jump back in the Discord. Where is he? Hey, if they give me a golden coffee machine, I'm not gonna say no, and I will even be for the next 2 years, however long, be like, you know what, CIG, best game ever, the most beautiful, the bestest. Welcome back. Hey, he's reporting
Hello.
back. Welcome back.
All right. Do I? Looks like you still have me on the webcam, so we're good there. All right.
Yeah, you should be good. The link should still be active. So, I don't know where you dropped out in the middle of my rant.
I'd been trying to track on my phone, but I'd completely lost it all.
You're good. No, the point I was trying to make was just there's a certain standard everyone should be able to work in. 100% agree. There's a certain level of little niceties, little luxuries, coffee, stuff like that are beneficial for a team. One of, we talked about this briefly with Source Stream. I work in production. I'm a producer. Before that, I was a production manager and a coordinator. So I'm responsible for the team there, right? Something a lot of people don't realize is breakfast isn't a necessity for us to provide for crews, but we do it anyways. Why? It is a courtesy and a luxury because we want our crews to be happy when they work, right? Do we have to do it? Are we legally required to? No. But we do because it's a luxury that helps relieve a certain amount of stress from the crew so that they don't have to worry about making sure they fed themselves before they get to work. They don't have to worry about feeding themselves at lunch or going away and making sure they come back on time because we provide that. And that's a cost we're willing to accept because it increases productivity. And that's the key word, is increasing productivity. I do not believe that having a, you know, Japanese blossom trees, I can't remember the pearl blossoms. What's the name of those? Cherry blossoms.
Cherry
Having
blossom.
those cherry blossom trees is really that necessary. Now, are they the most expensive part of that office? No, they're not. But they're just something that's so out of place that I feel like it kind of exemplifies what I'm trying to say. Of like, this is clearly not 100% necessary. Don't do it. And like I've said in my react is, I don't care if they do this. Kind of going back to what Dirk was saying of like, if the financials are good, if you guys truly believe you're going to be able to deliver and money's not an issue, cool. Don't show it. It's still poor optics. Now, most people won't see it as an issue. I think a lot of people just see it that it's not an issue because they would love to work in that space as well. But the point I always make is I would rather put money in people's pockets than in a little bit comfier chair for them to sit in. I would rather make sure people work the right amount of hours and aren't overworked. So I have the money to bring in other teams if in case things need to happen, and that way I'm not making one team work 12 to 16 to 20 hours a day, which I've done on set. I've done the 22, 24-hour days. They suck ass. No one is happy at the end of those days. And the reason why I bring this up is because I think it's valid within the video game industry because of crunch. And I thought it was pretty insane that we saw them crunch for last year's SitCon. And I don't think them having really nice, fancy, luxurious offices helped them feel any better about that crunch they put in.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, maybe interview some of the employees there on how they feel about it. But as somebody, like I said, on the outside looking in, there's a certain level that I felt they have gone above if those aren't assets used for marketing. Granted, maybe they're trying to market through SitCon, but that's really aimed at the player base, the people that are interested in the project to begin with.
And that's the thing, is I think sometimes people within the project lose sight of that. Is SitCon is a celebration of us who are in the project, who have been supporting it, but should it also be something that helps bring in people from outside the project to be a part of our project, right? Mm-hmm. I think expecting this game to stay in a niche is not necessarily reasonable. I think it is for now because it's unfinished and because all the content isn't there. But I think as we get closer to 1.0, you want more people to come into this. You need to have more people come into this because, this is a really bad joke we make most of the time in the verse, but some of us will be retired by the time this comes out. Some may have passed away. Some people's grandchildren may be inheriting a Robert Space Industries account.
A Kraken.
Yeah, exactly. A Kraken with a javelin and,
yeah.
But no, I think for me at the end of the day, I'm not trying to give the devs a hard time. I don't think it was their decision. And if the management caved to the devs' demand of Orison as their offices, then those managers should be fired and replaced with people who have a stronger spine. I don't necessarily think that happened. All in all, to say I'm not happy to really see that clearly if quite a bit of money has gone there. I would rather they be able to tell us confidently, hey, if you guys all stopped giving us anything right now, we can still last 3 years, finish off all our projects. Don't worry. Don't feel like you have to constantly be opening your wallet to help us continue. I think that would get a lot more support for them than taking too long and, showing that they've made certain extravagant expenses. Now, again, I just want to reiterate so that this doesn't get misconstrued. Everyone is allowed to have decent offices to work in. Everyone is allowed to have certain niceties. Little luxuries can go a long way. But I think if you want to have that kind of flex with where you work, how much you put into your building and stuff like that, finish a game. Nobody gives a crap that Bethesda has a 7 foot tall uh, dragon, whatever dude from Skyrim in their hallway. No one gives a crap that Bungie has a
Deathclaw.
lifelock Deathclaw. They have a Deathclaw. That's right. I remember that one. No one gives a crap that Bungie and Microsoft have a lifelike, super detailed Master Chief in their office. No one cares because they've all delivered and they were super successful. And I only can hope that CIG will be successful in this. But I think it might show a little bit of insight into their mentality if they think this is acceptable. And also a little bit into the people supporting this game if we think this is all acceptable and that we might as well be celebrating like this is a successful product. It's successful in terms of a alpha and a project being built. No other project has ever come close to what they're doing and they've accomplished.
For an alpha, it looks really good. I've played alphas that are still in gray box, and you're running around a textureless environment shooting people and stuff. So this game looks really good for being an alpha. So we can give them that. I mean, it's very cinematic for sure. But they still have a long way to go when it comes in terms of building the verse. There's how many star systems there's supposed to be?
For 1.0, we're going to have 5 for the entirety of the verse. It could never end. They could never stop adding, but it was supposed to be about 100.
Depending on how successful they are and how long the video game goes on. Then you got to think of creating the content inside of that. So are they going to continue on with these stories, or is it going to be the players that eventually drive that? Who knows? But typically, most of the time, all the MMOs that we know today are all driven by people actually physically creating and writing the content, and building that out inside the game. So, I hope this game is successful. I've put a decent amount of money into it the last year. I'm probably topping out on what I'm going to continue putting into it, because I have my fleet basically the way I want it. But I will be, depending on the pace of content that comes out, I will be, visiting it or revisiting it, and testing it out and try to provide my feedback. I've been a PC gamer for almost 30 years of my life now. So I feel like I've got some decent experience to give back to them to create a good experience for all.
And I think that's important to remember that, take a step back at times, remember that this project is still being built. I hope it goes well. So I guess that's perfect. Kind of takes me into the last part here. It's just final thoughts on SitCon. Did it leave you more hopeful? Did it leave you a bit more excited for certain things, or it was cool stuff, and let's just see when it comes in or if it comes in?
Cool announcements. I like the showcase of Genesis. Genesis looks promising in the terms of creating planets for us to go and explore and look at. Again, it's the cinematic aspect of this game that really is, at the forefront. Let's see how those bits of content they mentioned really well we can play. And then let's see how they implement the instancing and how that goes. As you know, with instancing, usually there's a loading period, and they mentioned that they don't want to have a loading screen, and they want you to go into it and out of it, much like we go in and out of Pyro. So we'll see how they implement it. I think it's going to be pretty difficult, but I hope for the better. I hope these new pieces of content flow, and they're fun to play, and we don't run into a whole lot of bugs that set people back or leave them frustrated. The size and scope of that mission looks like it would be unlike this morning when I went through Site B. I got all the way to the end, and then the kiosk you couldn't interact with. I spent a good hour getting to that point, basically, maybe a
Yeah.
half hour, um, for it to be broken. So hopefully stuff like that doesn't happen when we get into the instancing.
I
So
agree. I think
sick.
it's supposed to be like going to your hangar. You get into an
Yeah.
elevator. By the time you get out of the elevator, you're in the instance, and they've done a pretty good
Yeah.
job at that. That
Yep.
works relatively
So.
well. Um,
Hmm.
so, but for your first sitcom that you saw as a watch party, good, positive, little meh.
Yeah. I had a good experience with it, especially being I'm just going to say a newer person. There's people that are, what, 14, 13 years into this game. For
Yes.
somebody that enjoys video games and considers himself a PC gamer, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the theatrics. I think Jared is a great person to have at your forefront. He's entertaining, and I feel like he tries to be as honest with us as he can. So I was excited about the content that I saw. Now it just comes down to the execution for them, and
Yeah.
that's really up to them.
And yeah, that's been a mitigated track record for them.
Mm.
But again, I do want to finish this on more of a positive note because you mentioned it, I've mentioned it, a lot of people have mentioned it. It's important to mention that 12 months ago was an entirely different experience than now. 10 months ago was an entirely different experience than now. The last 6 months have been impressive in terms of playability. I have way
Yep.
less issues than I used to. And now, typically, at least the stuff that comes in tends to work. And maybe, yes, a mission or two previously doesn't work as well. But the hope is that the next patch, they iron that issue out again and you keep moving forward.
Hmm.
Um, and yes, Stavo, we know they've built tools to build tools to then rebuild the tools because they were outdated. And so and that's the
Yeah.
problem when you
Well,
take so long to build a game is that is inevitably going to happen, it feels like. So
well,
as long as they can stay ahead of that.
yep. Yeah. To put it into perspective, at least from my point of view, is they've had to hash out a lot of things to get to the point to where they are, and a lot of that foundation is set now, and hopefully we'll see the ramping up of content and things. Um, Pushing back the last year to now, we've gone from 100 players up to 700 now, which is pretty insane when you consider the scope of this game with the physics engine and the persistence that goes into everything. That's a lot. That's a lot to
Yeah.
handle. So that is a really positive note. And then yeah, the rate in which we're seeing ships show up and new content show up has gone up. So I'm excited for the future. I would like to come back in a year on the podcast with you and revisit from, just kind of do an annual thing and see where we are. So if we're still around, let's do it.
Yeah. Um we won't speak about the Banu Merchantman. That's a urban legend. It's never actually coming into the game.
There's systems in that they're working on. We're just getting crafting. So when it comes to a lot of the other systems that need to be around for that ship to be viable, we're still waiting on it.
Yeah. I think a lot of us are just waiting on, different things. I'm more interested in what's going to drive the game forward, and I don't think that's ships. I think certain ships will. The Kraken
Hmm.
will be an interesting one. I think the most important ones in terms of gameplay will be the Pioneer, the Galaxy with its base building module, any other ships with modules that are used to build and create more stuff in the verse. I think will be super important. But yeah, no, for me, the most important stuff is the content coming in, how that creates the overall experience, and then getting in more of what we need for 1.0. That should always be the priority. So,
Yep.
um,
Yes.
I mean,
Be-
Vulcan, is that really going to change the game completely and make you want to play, more? I don't think so. So, Vulcan coming in, cool. If that helps me get a few
uh,
extra
you know,
FPS, I'm down.
my experience with Vulcan is very positive. Other than maybe the memory leak or something they're dealing with.
That's
When
been a
I
problem
when I
for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I turn on Vulkan though and play it, it feels like an entirely different game. It runs so much more smooth. You don't get a lot of the hitching that you notice with DirectX, and that just may be with how the game runs with being persistent and no loading screens and stuff. And Vulkan is really a very parallel API, which works out well. But yeah, Vulkan is. I'm hoping for them to hash everything out with Vulkan so I can start playing Vulkan. But yeah, that the heading, stepping back for a second here, the gameplay loops and the features uh, we're waiting on to come into the game, engineering and crafting coming in a little bit, and then the base building. I think those are key features that really need to be, they really need to push on because those will bring a lot of other players in, and those will just, develop, those will create a lot of other gameplay loops that, casuals can have a fun time with.
Yeah, and I
So,
think that's also something important to remember is how important the casual side of any game is. One of the reasons why a few people came back to Tarkov, and I always use Tarkov as the example. One of the reasons
mhm.
why people came back to Tarkov is with PvE, it became a more casual game that they didn't have to
Yep.
get so sweaty over. And I think keeping things casual is also very important.
Yeah.
Um, so, all right, well, and that's something I'm glad you mentioned it, but we didn't get a chance to really talk about engineering. Or, I think that's the biggest one. Base building, I'm very hopeful for that'll come in soon and it'll be great.
Hmm.
But engineering is the one that was supposed to come out 4.0. It's still not out yet. We might see a tech preview before the end of the year, but that's another one where
Fingers,
something clearly
fingers
went wrong.
crossed.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I really want to get into the engineering gameplay to see how that turns out. But I'm really excited for the crafting and base building. I think that's really going to add a personal touch to the game and allow people to feel like they've got something more than just a hangar and a spaceship. They've got somewhere to go and live out of and do things with. It
Hmm.
doesn't matter if it's even if it's just something small, like just a small place where we can have a few things and create and have just some kind of footing somewhere in the verse. I think is going to be huge.
Yeah. And then, like you said earlier, being able to decorate your dash. Super. It's the little things, okay, guys?
Dude, you guys are going to have to get Star Lancers. You're going to have to get some kind of misc with a huge dash because you're going to have all sorts of things
We'll
put on
just
there.
have convoys of Star Lancer Maxes. It'll be like, the trucks in India that are all decorated. Have
Heck
all this
yes.
stuff
Oh
on the
man.
dash
Oh yes.
with
I
like
love it.
lights going up. That'll be great. Can we do that, please,
Hmm.
CIG? Can we put
Yes,
Christmas
yes.
lights on the outside of our ships?
Speaking, yeah, the whole Speaking of the whole series, I want to see more fun skins, like big advertising skins put on those things. I know there's one in the subscriber store. It's like blue and orange or whatever, but I want to see like, the brands that they have in the game. You're pulling up to a station, and, you see the brand signs that are out there. I want to see skins like that for the whole series that you could put on and run around with. I think that would be pretty good.
That would be funny. You're sponsored by Cruise Carrick, or you're sponsored by Fizz Hull D. It's a
Yeah,
fizzy Hull D. Oh, it's terrible.
yeah.
That's
Oh no.
it's the fizzy D. No, sorry.
No.
But
Yeah.
all right. Well, thank you very much for joining me. This was a lot of
Hmm.
fun. It was a good chat. I think there's a lot more to talk about than maybe we thought of, and yeah, we'll have to do this
Hmm.
again. We'll definitely be doing another one at the end of the year
All right.
to see where everything kind of landed and what we got before the end, and then fingers crossed, all the stuff we want comes out sooner than later.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah,
I'm looking forward to seeing you and Nick's, and let's this next Sunday. I know we've been trying to do it, but this next Sunday, the 26th, let's do another Zero to Hero run stuff.
yes, next Sunday we should plan a
Skivvy Sunday.
skivvy Sunday, and we can do it. Could you think we could get through the ASDs?
Yeah. Yeah. There's enough NPCs and stuff that that spawn, and
But
a
do
lot
you
of those
think
NPCs.
we would die from not having a helmet? You know what we should do is start with those ones you just put on your head and it puts like a bubble around your face.
The
If we
little
can get
bag
those to
one,
work, yeah. If we can
the
get
clear
those to
bag helmet.
work, everyone's
I,
forced to start with that.
I, I've taken my helmet off in the ASD facility to drink water and stuff. I just don't know of any areas where that would be an issue. Maybe in the core room. I don't know.
Right? I was wondering the
Trying to-
core room might be the one where is there actually Atmo in there? Not sure.
You know what? Maybe I'll just run in there and take my helmet off and see. But
For science.
I think it. Yeah, exactly. I think it. I think it does. But yeah, appreciate you inviting me to the podcast. Thanks for having me here. It's been a great time. I'm looking forward to doing more of these when invited.
Absolutely, you were fun. Thank you so much for coming. Everybody, please go show Cody some love if you haven't already. Get him another shout out here. Thank you all for being awesome. Thanks for coming and listening to two guys rant about the verse. I always find these discussions really interesting and fun, and I enjoy them a lot. So thank you all for supporting us as we do this. And yeah,